the first demonstration in the Graduate Excel course of the Mac video series. Super excited to create these for you. A lot of feedback that I've gotten over the last couple of years is that you folks on Macs would like your own videos. And so here we go. I am here on my Mac, as you can see, in the most recent version of Excel for Mac. And we'll get rolling here in a sec. Let me just say that in a class of this size, what I've usually found is that there's at least one student that has not used Excel professionally before. And so we are going to start at the very beginning with a blank worksheet and explain everything. But please do not worry, even if you are a fairly advanced user of Excel, I think that you're going to come away from even just today's introductory 1-hour session with some really cool tips and tricks to increase your productivity. And then don't you worry a bit. As we move on into further demos, this class is going to become very intermediate and quite advanced quickly. I am confident that you are going to enjoy this and get a lot of value out of that. So hey, let's dive right in. If we look up at the top of Excel, we're going to see that we have tabs. Okay, we have the Home tab, Insert tab, Draw, Page Layout, etc. And in each side of one of those tabs, we have groups of buttons. And then when we click on those buttons, things happen. And we'll get back to those later. Okay? When we look at the spreadsheet itself, we see that we have letters across the top that represent the columns, and then we have numbers on the left that represent the rows. And so an intersection, like an intersection of D and then 5, well, that would be cell D5. And if I click on cell D5, that's highlighted, and we can see right up here, D5, up here in the name bar right there, D5, okay, in the name box. Right? So great. Hey, so that's how that works. And then down below, we have our worksheets. Right now, we're in the gradebook worksheet. And then to click over to other worksheets, we just click on them. We can move on through here, and we will start on the gradebook worksheet. Now, it's really rare that we actually just go ahead and open up an empty Excel file and just start working on a brand new sheet like this. But we'll do it today because there is an awful lot that we can learn by creating something from scratch. And we're going to create together a really simple gradebook. That's going to make sense to all of us because we've all been students. So this makes a lot of sense. And along the way, we'll probably learn, 30 different things just by building a really simple gradebook. So let's do that. Let's head on up into cell A1. And what we're going to do now is we are going to create what's called the field headers. These are going to be the names that are going to go across in the very top row, and those are going to tell us what is going to be in the columns in the data beneath. Okay? And so the first thing that I would want here is just students' names, right? I just want students' names across there, and I don't want that in all caps locks. And I do apologize. You're going to see some really clumsy typing from me, a lot more clumsy than you would see in my PC demonstrations because I'm doing this instead of with a full keyboard as I normally work on a PC. I'm going to do all these demonstrations off of a Mac, Mac laptop, MacBook keyboard so that I've got all the keys the same as you, and it's definitely going to make me clumsy. So here we go. There we have, I have a name in there because I'm going to want my student names down through here. Now, most folks would go name and they would hit enter. And so what does that do? Well, that locks the info in their name, and then it locks info in and it moves down. And that's the default thing in Excel because we used to do lots of data entry into columns like this. We don't really do a whole lot of that anymore, but it is still the default. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And a much better technique for me to do up there would be to go name, and then what I want to do is I want to move to the right and fill in all of these column headers. So I should hit my tab key. That locks the info in and then takes me over to the right. Okay, so hey, that's really good. All right, so now this gradebook is going to have 3 quizzes and 3 exams. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go and write quiz 1 up here. Okay, and now what I want to do is I want to lock this information in and then actually use the computer to autofill this sequence. I could go quiz tab, quiz 1 tab, quiz 2 tab, quiz 3, but this is a sequence, quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3, and computers are excellent at sequences. And so what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and lock this information in and then do something else with my cursor. So to lock this information in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control Enter. Okay? Control Enter, that locked that information in and left that as the active cell instead of moving to the right or down like Tab and Enter did. And so now that information is locked in, but I am still in that spot. Now, on my keyboard, I have a Control key. And now what I've noticed is that this varies across Macs. sometimes when I'm hitting control, your control key may not do that, and you'll need to use your command key instead. It might be your option key. Generally, it's control and command. Those are kind of interchangeable on Macs, is what I've noticed. And so if my control key isn't working, doing something, try your command key. Okay? So control enter, lock that information in. And now, before I fill out that sequence, let's talk about what our mouse cursor can do. So what we've been using it so far as is this select cursor. We see that it's this white plus symbol, and if I just go and I grab things, it just selects them, right? Like I select this cell, I select this cell, I select this range, I select a big chunk, okay? And so all I'm doing is just left clicking and dragging, and I'm just selecting things. If I want to select two things next to one another, or not next to one another, like non-adjacent, I want to select this over here in G, what I'll need to do is I'll go ahead and hold down my command key, and then do it again, and now I can select non-adjacent ranges, okay? Like that, boom, there we go. Okay, so that's our select cursor. I'm gonna go back up, I'm gonna go select that cell again. The second cursor mode is if we take our cursor and we go and we park it right on the edge of the green border of the selected cell, it turns into this hand symbol. That is our move cursor. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and left click and drag to move that down someplace. I'll try it again. Hand, left click and drag to move it down there. Okay, so that's our move cursor. Now, I didn't really want to move that, so I'll go up here, up to this little left hooky thing up here in the top left corner and go undo. Now, you will never see me do that again. That is super slow, and we undo things all day long in Excel. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Control Z on my keyboard. Control Z to undo something in any Microsoft application. So Control Z undid that. Okay. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the third cursor tool. Okay, I am going to take my mouse and I am going to bring it down to the bottom right hand corner of the active cell, and it's going to turn into a bold plus symbol. Now I'm going to left click, hold, and drag to the right, and it is going to autofill the sequence. And you can see it's giving me a little preview, quiz 3 of what's going to go in there. Boom, there we go. We filled that out. Now, interestingly, you'll notice that we have this box all the way around all three of these now. What that indicates is I have 3 cells selected. The gray ones are also selected, but my active cell is here. So I can't just use my tab key right now because that'll actually stay locked inside of that selected box. So I could use my right arrow to move over, or I could use my mouse to get out of that. Good. So now we want to go exam 1, exam 2, exam 3. And so I'll go exam 1 right there, Control Enter to lock that information in, and then I'll go to the bottom right-hand corner, bold plus symbol, left click, hold, drag, and there is my sequence. Okay, great. I'll right click over here. And so now, what I'm also gonna want in my gradebook here is I'm gonna need to know the total points, right? So I'll go ahead and just call this one, that's gonna be my total row right there, or total column, okay? And then the last thing, tab to move over, is gonna be the grade percentage, right? I'm gonna wanna know people's grade percentage in the course. And now I can go ahead and hit enter or whatever I want. There's no really good way for me to hop from here all the way back over into column A. There are a couple, there's a couple of keyboard shortcuts that would get us there, but there's no one button click. And so I'll just take my mouse and click over here, and that's fast enough for me. And so now we just need to make up a bunch of names, right? And so we've got student Tom, and we'll say Jerry in there, and Mary, and Chen, and Kim, and then one more, we'll have a Dylan. Okay, oops, we'll have a Dylan. Okay, there we go. So now we've got our 6 students in there. And so now what we need is the data, okay? We need the data in here for these scores. And I actually have that for us down here, just lower on the sheet. So if we just go ahead and scroll on down, you'll see that I have this data for us here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select this data, and then we will just we can copy and paste this, or we can move it. I'll copy and paste it first. I'll go Control C to copy, and then I'll go back up there, and I go ahead and go to the top left where I want it to start from, Control V to paste that into there. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and Control Z to undo that. Another way I might do that is to actually cut that, right? So I'd go Control X, and then I'd come up and I would paste it into here, paste it, Control V, and now it won't be down here anymore because I actually cut it out and pasted it up there. I'm going to go Control Z one more time, and another alternate method would be for me just to move this. If I select it, go to my move cursor, my hand symbol there, and just grab that and move it on up here. Up. Will it scroll for me? Maybe it won't on my Mac. That's interesting. Okay, so that's not really cool. It won't just move it. Oh, there it goes. Maybe. Will it move this up for me? Wow, that's not great. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not too sure what I'm supposed to do here on a Mac. That would have worked on a PC. I will just copy and paste this so as not to confuse you with my poor moving stuff on a Mac. There we go. I'm going to paste that into there. Okay, great. So now I have my data in here and I can start doing stuff. All right. So I'm going to come over here and I am going to go ahead and total up the points for Tom. And so that's 15 plus 14 plus 15 plus 84 plus 83 plus 93. So if I want, when we were just typing things in, we just typed them in. Now for Excel to calculate something, what we do is we start with an equal symbol. We say, hey, Excel, calculate something. And so what we are never going to do is this, 15, right, plus 14 plus 15, okay? We're never going to do that. That is called hard coding data, and that violates the golden rule of Excel. The golden rule of Excel says if something can ever change, then we put it off to the side in a box that's labeled, and then we use cell references instead, okay? Could one of these quiz scores or exam scores ever change? Well, of course they could, right? And so we never do that. We never hard code data in. Instead, what we do is we use cell references, right? We're going to say like B2, which is that 15 right there, plus, right, C2, like that, right? And so that's perfectly okay. That's really slow, me typing that stuff in. So at the very least, I would go over and click on them. I would say, hey, B2 right there, plus C2 like that. That's also quite slow, though, doing these individually like that and having to list that whole thing out. And so instead, what we will do is if we find ourselves doing something repetitive in Excel, odds are there's a function for that, okay? There's a function that will help us to do that. And so what we're going to do is here, what are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to sum up these numbers. That's the mathematical thing we want to do. And so I'm going to go ahead and sum those numbers. And there it is. There is the sum function. And when we start doing that, this nice tooltip appears down here. And so this is the one that's highlighted right there. If it's highlighted, I can just hit the tab key or I can just double click on it, okay? Just double click and that will start. Okay? And so that's a beautiful thing because it spells it correctly and puts the open parenthesis that we need there. And then we're just gonna head on over here and we're gonna use our select cursor to select the numbers that we need there. And then I'm going to lock this in, have it calculate, lock it in, and leave it positioned there because I'm going to copy this down. So I'll go Control Enter to lock that in and stay positioned there. And then I will go to the bottom right-hand corner and I will click and drag that down. Okay, and that will populate that whole thing. And so, well, how does that work? Well, if I go up here and I want to look at this 304, what I can do is I can go ahead and double click into that and that will go into edit mode. And then I can see that I'm summing this blue bar across here, right? And now, do not, when you get into edit mode, don't start clicking around other places. It will change your formula. So what we do is to get up out of edit mode, we hit escape, okay? Escape right there. And so then let's come down and look at like Chen's here. If we double click there, what do we see? Oh, well, okay. So it's summing the blue thing here and it moved in a relative way to the way that we moved, right? We copied this down through the column and so it moved in a relative way each time down to the next record, which is exactly what we needed. And so that's called a relative reference and it moves in a relative way to the way that we copied it down. Okay? So now I want to figure out the grade percentage, but I actually run into a problem there because what I want to do is I need to divide Tom's 304 total points by the actual total possible, which I don't have in here right now. So I better add in a line for the maximum points possible. And so that's what I'll do here. I actually need, in row 2, I need something for the maximum points. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a row right here. And anytime that I insert a row, it will go back toward this origin point here. So if I want a new row 2, I'll come to row 2 and I will insert one right here. And that'll go in between 1 and 2 and become the new 2. If I wanted to have a new column in between B and C, I would come to C, insert, and it always goes back to the left or up, back toward this origin point here. So I'll go to 2, I will right click, and now I have a mouse. If you're on your Mac keyboard, of course, a right click is control and click, right? So I'll right click and I will come down to insert, and boom, that inserts a row. And so now I have that inserted there, and I'll just call this the maximum right there. And quizzes can be up to 20 points. Now we can autofill this sequence, but there's not really a good trick for filling in 20 that's any faster than just going and putting it in manually and just going tab over like that. That's pretty fast. Exams are worth 100. If it was more than 3 entries for these things, I would do some kind of automated thing, but that's pretty fast, right? So there we go. We've got the points totals there. Now I need to sum this. I could rewrite my sum function, or I have a sum function right here on this line. I copied it down, but I can also copy it up. So I'll just go to the bottom right-hand corner, left click, up, drag, and there is my sum function summing up those. Right? So hey, I have my total now, so now I can figure out the grade percentage. So to do this, I'm just going to take the small number divided by the big number, right, to get a percentage. The maximum, of course, is 100%, so I'll just go 360 here, divided by 360. Now I'm using my mouse right now, but let me show you that if you have arrow keys on your keyboard, it's actually quite a bit faster. Anytime that I would say that my values are within like 2 or 3 cells, I'll use my arrow keys, and it's a lot faster than grabbing my mouse. So I'll just go left over. Oh, let me do that again. I'm going to go equal sign, left arrow. It's not working on my Mac. Okay, well, maybe it'll work on yours. If you use your arrow keys, that should just arrow over. It's not working on mine, so I'm just going to go ahead and use my mouse. I'm going to go 360 there, divided by 360 right there, and then control enter, and it comes through as 1. Well, why 1? I was expecting grade percentage of 100%. Well, it's because in math, 1 is the same thing as 100%. And so the computer always sees what we call general number formatting. And if we look up here on the Home tab in the center, we can see that this cell is set to general. If we just change that to percentage, boom, we will see a percentage. And then that has 2 decimal places. If you want to increase or decrease your decimal places, that's right there. And I will go ahead and decrease the decimal places to the 100 there. Okay? So now these cells are all set to general as well, but I would like percentages in them. So I may as well change this and set these all to percentages right now and save myself some time. So I'll just go ahead and highlight all of these cells and then go up, and I will change the general there to percentage. I can do this drop down again like that, or I can just come and click on this percentage right here. Now these are set to percentage, okay? And that'll be a lot more convenient for me. So now I am going to divide the 304 by 360. So equals 304 divided by 360. And control enter, and 84%. Just what I was looking for, right? Great, we've got Tom's grade percentage. So now I'll copy this down. I will come to the bottom right-hand corner, left click, and drag this on down. And wait a second. 107, 102%, that's not possible. What is going on here? Okay, so this is how we figure these things out. When we see something crazy, no need to get crazy about it. Let's just go figure it out. Let's go up to the one that worked, the 84%, double click into here. And what have we got? We got blue divided by red, 304 divided by 360. That looks good. Escape to get out of edit mode. Let's go down to one that's going crazy. Oh, look at that. It's blue divided by red, 305 divided by 85. That's not what we wanted, right? We wanted 305 divided by 360. So we never wanted this red cell to move, okay? We want the blue one to change, but we want the red one to stay put on 360. That's a really easy thing to do. What we're going to do is we are going to add dollar signs to this, okay? We're going to add dollar signs to the H2. And we do that with the F4 key. Okay, that's built right in there. Now, if I hit F4 on my Mac, boom, I get dollar signs. You may or may not, okay? And so if your F keys are tasked to other things on your Mac, like maybe it does the volume or something like that, I'm gonna go ahead and escape out of this. Let me show you this real quick. What I'm gonna do is I am going to minimize Excel. I am going to head over into System Preferences, okay? And I'm gonna go to my keyboard and we're gonna change this. Where's my keyboard hanging out? Boom, right there. Go to my keyboard and there, click this button. Use F1, F2 keys as standard function keys and just set it up that way every time that you're working in Excel because you need this F4 key working, okay? So we're gonna go back into this. We're gonna go to that H2 and we're going to hit F4. If you've got an older Mac and you can't make that F4 work, Command T will do that. Okay, and then of course you can always add in $signs manually, just like you would in a Word document by doing, Shift 4, but that is super slow. Okay, so we're just going to put $signs on that, and that is going to tell that red cell to never move. Control Enter, and now we are going to copy this down, boom, and it's fixed up. Okay, now the red cell is not moving, and we are in really good shape. Okay. The other thing that I would like to get out of this right now is I would like to look at the averages, okay, the averages for these various exams. So I'm going to go ahead and write in here that this is going to be the average line here, okay. That caps lock is just going to drive me crazy being there on my small keyboard. Okay, so average right there. And now I want to find the average that's going to be a function, and that's going to be the average function, okay. So I'm not going to spell that whole thing out. It comes up, there's the tooltip. Average is highlighted, so I'll just hit the tab key to get that started. Boom, just like that. Beautiful. Then I'm going to go up and grab Tom's score down to Dylan's score. Control Enter. Boom, there we go. And then I will copy this over to get all of the averages. So now you'll note that we've got these little triangles, these green triangles in the corner, and then we've got this little construction sign right over here, this caution sign. What that is there is a potential error in Excel right now, and it's telling me to take a look at it for this. And so let's go hover over the sign right there and see what it says. It says the formula in this cell refers to a range that has additional numbers adjacent to it. So hey, this is being very polite. Excel is trying to help out. What is it saying? It's saying that, hey, you selected 15 through 15 down here, but didn't you mean to include this 20? Well, you know what? I didn't. I actually know exactly what I'm doing, but I see where it would want to warn me about that. It thinks that 20 should be included in this. I'm going to tell it, hey, you know what? I know what I'm doing. Ignore this error. Boom, they go away, and that's cleaned up. Okay, so I have a lot of crazy percentages going on here. I'm going to go ahead and reduce this down to decimals. I'm going to reduce this down to 1 decimal place by using my reduced decimal places up here. And there we go. Hey, that is really looking good. We have built a decision model here, okay? A decision model in that we have taken raw data, these scores right here, and we have produced information, right? We have totals, we have grade percentages, we have averages. So now I can use this to make decisions, right? I can look at quiz 2 and say, hey, that's a little low amongst these quizzes. Maybe I need to change that quiz or apply a curve to that, right? My exams here are nice and consistent, right? And so I now have information. You know what I also have is a really ugly model, okay? So what we completely lack here is formatting. I would never share something like this with any other person, okay? In fact, I wouldn't even share this with myself. If I was building this and I was going to reuse this, I would apply a minimum amount of formatting to this. If I was going to send it to somebody else, I would definitely apply a minimum amount of formatting. The minimum amount of formatting says that we, at the very least, need to apply a different font and background color to the header row so that it distinguishes it from the data beneath. And so you can go ahead and apply a font and then a contrasting background to this individually using these buttons right up in here, but that's slow. I like to just use the pre-built stuff, and that's right up in here. Now, if on your laptop you don't see all of these things, that's because my screen resolution is actually really high here, and so I can see a lot of stuff. You may just see cell styles right here, and you'll need to click on that, and that will open up the drop down to see this stuff, okay? And so I like accent 1 down here. I think it's great. That's a great header row right there, okay? Now, this maximum row, that is also not part of the data. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that one as well and go ahead and add some different formatting to that one too, okay? That's a little loud. I'm not too sure that I'm really fond of that. So maybe I'll come down and I'll pick something a little less obnoxious. Not too sure how crazy I am about that one either. There's got to be something here that I can live with. Let's find something. I'll just stick with the neutral. It's fine. Okay. So then the average row here also, that could use something different. And so there I will come down here and I'll actually use the totals row for that one. And so This is nicely cleaned up. The last thing that I'll do is to add borders around this. So I'm going to go ahead and select this whole thing. And then I'm going to come up here into this group here. And I'm going to go where this little window symbol is, that's borders. And then I'll come down and go all borders. And wow, look at that transformation. Look at how easy on the eyes that is compared to the model we had before. Okay. So hey, just one more thing here. Let's test this golden rule of Excel. So, why is it that I said we could not hard code data? Well, it's this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this same average calculation here, but I'm going to go ahead and hard code this data. So just like I'm using a TI calculator, I'm going to go ahead and say 15 plus 15 plus 14 plus 14 plus 15 plus 15. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide that by the 6 entries. Right? And I'm going to get the same exact number here. We've just modified the decimal places there. So let me widen that out. And we'll see that we get exactly the same number. Okay. So why are we so worried about violating the golden rule of Excel? Well, can these ever change? Well, so of course they can, right? I get an email from Tom today, and Tom says, hey, Professor Ford, I talked to you after class, remember? And we talked about that I actually got a 19. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me fix that. So I go to my gradebook, I fix that, I enter the new data. The formula that is written with cell references updates to the new score. The hard-coded data never updates, and this is an absolute problem. That is the golden rule of Excel. Do not violate the golden rule of Excel. Always do it like this. All right. Hey, that was fun. Let's move over onto the next sheet, the Canvas export. Here is the exact same data we were just looking at, right? But this is a much more realistic example. As I said, it is exceedingly rare that you open up a blank workbook and work like this. Instead, what we do is we go to something like Canvas and we press the export button and it exports to Excel and it looks just like this, okay? And so right off the bat, I see something interesting here, right? So we have these pound symbols here, okay? And what these are is what we call these railroad tracks, okay? And what these are numbers that do not fit inside of this cell. This is Excel being very polite and showing and being unwilling to show us numbers that don't fit in the cell. And so, well, why does it do that? Words, it will go ahead and cut off, right? So this right here, these things like this Samuel W.O., it is very obvious to us, right, that is somebody's name and that it's being truncated and cut off. There's more name there, okay? But this number here, that would not be obvious. If this number was 1 million, but it was cut off, we might easily read it as 1,000 and have that inaccurate. So all we need to do when we get railroad tracks is just go ahead and widen out the column so that we can see it. To widen columns, all we do is we'll just click into the column and highlight it, and then we just come to the outside edge. When it turns into that symbol with the 2 arrows, we just left click and drag to widen that out so that we can see the number in there. Same thing with these 951 numbers, right? So if we widen that out, we'll see the full 951 number. If we shorten it up, it will truncate into scientific notation. And then if we shorten it up even more, right, it'll keep on doing that until it gets too small, and then it will turn into railroad tracks. So to fix the railroad tracks, we just widen it out so that it has room, and there we go, that's fixed up. So now I don't actually need the ID and all of this stuff in this example that I'm doing here. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and just go ahead and highlight these all at the same time. I'm selecting that, left clicking and dragging to highlight all those, right click, and then just delete to get rid of those. Okay, I'm going to Control Z to undo that. If this was in the middle of something and I couldn't highlight all the columns like that, I can just go ahead and grab this section like this, just grab this section and go ahead and hit my delete key, or Control Z, or go ahead and right click and delete there, and it will ask me how I should shift this. And what I want is I want this stuff to shift to the left, and so I would say shift to the left, okay, boom, it would shift it and collapse it. Usually the fastest way is just to use the column headers like I showed you the first time. Okay. So now, note here that it looks like we have this data right here in column H1 right here, right? But if we hit the delete key, nothing will happen. And so what is this? This is actually, this whole thing is is all in cell G1. And we can see that if we look up here in the name box, G1 is selected. In the formula bar, it shows us the entire thing. It's midterm 3 plus that number codes. So if we wanted to edit this, we could go double click and into edit mode, and then we could remove that, or escape key, or I come up into here into the formula bar and I can modify it up there too, okay? And the reason that that is not truncating is because there is nothing in this cell next door. If we put something here, then it will truncate and we won't see that unless we widen out the column to see it, okay? All right, let's move on and let's go over to the number format page. So number, or rather formatting in Excel is pretty neat, okay? And what we want to understand about Excel is that there are two levels to every cell in Excel. There is the underlying number that the computer sees, and then there is the number that we see above that is formatted, that may just be an illusion for our eyes, all right? Formatting does not change the underlying number that Excel sees. And we can demonstrate that really in an interesting way just by looking at these. Here is a sum function adding up 25, 50, 10, and 15. Escape. Here is a sum function adding up 25, 50, 10, and 15, the exact same numbers. This one is coming out as 99 and this one is 100. Is Excel broken? How is this possible? Okay, it's actually quite simple. This is just formatting, which is an illusion for our eyes. Excel knows better. It sees the underlying numbers, and that's what it is calculating. And so what we have here is we have numbers that are formatted to 0 decimal places, right? If we increase the decimal places here, we will see that those are not the real numbers, okay? And these are not being rounded, okay? Formatting is an illusion for our eyes. It does not change the underlying number that Excel sees. And so if we wanted to actually round these, we would use a function like round, and that would change the actual underlying number. Formatting is just an illusion for our eyes, and so Excel always sees the actual numbers beneath, and that is how we're arriving at different numbers here, okay? Because the numbers are different. This is just formatting, and if I say give me less decimal places, it will, but it does not change the underlying number. If you want to see what Excel sees, take the things and turn them into general number format. General number format is no formatting, and that is what Excel sees. So, Excel is great with numbers. We're really not human beings. And so we require formatting to make things make sense for us. Right? So formatting, like this cell here, this 22 has lots of levels of formatting. It has 2 decimal places. It has currency formatting. It has that currency symbol in front of it. It has a gray background, a white font, and it's a large font. And it's bold. Okay, so there's all sorts of formatting going on there. If I go Control C to copy that, and then I come over here and Control V to paste it, all of the formatting will come with it. Every cell already has formatting. It's just general, no formatting. Okay, and then if we copy something, all of it comes across with it. Right? Down here, this cell has currency formatting. Currency is 2 decimal places. If we perform a calculation, the formatting will come with it. If we say 11 times, right, asterisk 2 right here, Control Enter, the formatting will travel with the calculation. One of the most interesting formatting things that happens in Excel is dates, right? And so what happens, so Excel works a lot with dates. We're managers, right? And time is money. And so Excel needs a very efficient way to work with dates and do date math. And so the way that it does that is Excel believes that the universe was created on this day, January 1st of 1900, okay? And then what it's doing is it's just adding days to that ever since. And so the way that Excel does this is it thinks of January 1 at the turn of the century as being, if I make this general, as being the number 1. And then it just adds numbers to that. January 10 of 1900 is just 10, okay? December 31st of 1900 is just 366 days later, okay? And so that's how it does that. And so the big takeaway is that any number in Excel can become a date, and any date can become a number. And so if we are expecting to see, if we're doing some calculation and we are expecting to see $22, okay, right here. We're expecting to see $22, but instead we see, come down to date here, instead we see January 22. Don't stress, it's just formatting. It, for some reason, it thought it was supposed to be a date. Just come up and we go general, boom, back to that, or in that case, currency, and it'll go back to that. Okay? And so we can do neat stuff with this, right? If we want to just go ahead and like put in today's date, right? For me, that would be 4/5/2022 here, right? We can just do that and we can put that in there. Whoa, wait a second. I just told it, that it is April 5th of 2022. What the heck happened to me? Okay, so this cell was set to number format, and that is the number equivalent of the days since January 1st, 1900. It is 44,656 days since then. I wanted a date there. Let's just go up and say, hey, give me a date. There we are. There's today's date for me. Now, this is one big difference between Macs and PCs. Okay, is that on a PC it'll actually say 4/5/2022, and then Macs just do 2022. This is one of those times that I really prefer Mac. I really don't need my computer to tell me what century I'm in. That's a really good feature that I like a whole lot. Okay. So then there are other ways that we can get today's date. You can use the today function. Okay, today. You don't need to put anything into that. All it needs is just the function, and then we just go ahead and hit enter, and that will put today's date in there. Now, the problem with this is what we call a dynamic function. If I close this file now and I send it to somebody and they open it a week later, it's going to say 4/12/2022 or 2022. It updates every time it's opened up. If you want to hard code it in, and I know on a PC this is actually control semicolon. Let's see if it's the same here. It is, okay? Control semicolon. Now that puts today's date in there and it hard codes it. This is not a formula. Enter, and that will stay hard coded because that is not a formula. It's not dynamic. Okay. All right. Hey, a couple more things about formatting. You see, I've been using this yellow formatting for all the headers on these things, and then I've got green here. So I need to change this green one to look like this. So I could go through the slow process of selecting a background and a foreground and everything else to match that. But the Format Painter is the beautiful way to do this. So I know this is what I want right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up here into up here, and I got this little paintbrush format. Click on that, and then come down, and boom, it transfers all of the formats over there. And that can be really useful because sometimes we've got just a ton of formats in cells, and that is a really nice, fast way to do that. Right? So now, the great thing about the way that Excel is handling dates is, it's highly efficient, right? So like, my new date of being today, right? So boom, there we go. There's today. And then the old date, we're going to say, that I'm invoicing somebody for was like back in February, okay? And so I'm going to go 2/6/22, right? Boom, right there, okay? And so what I want to know is the difference between those two, right? Is it time for me to apply a penalty to this invoice? And so that's just this one up here minus that one there. Boom, right there. And it's 58 days. Yep, time for me to go after them, okay? And so how does it do that so efficiently? Well, all it's doing is it's just using subtraction because these are actually just numbers. If we go in there and we just go to general, we can see that this is just the big number minus the small number. Super easy for it to do like that. So that's why it can handle date math so easily, okay? So Control Z to put those back into date format there. And now, hey, I want these here to look just like this up here, right? So what I can do is I can just go ahead and use I can lock the Format Painter, right? So I can go ahead and I can just go ahead and grab this, like this one here, and go Format Painter, okay? And I will just click here and drag down, and boom, all of those formats come across just like that. It puts date on there, it puts everything else. That's sweet. I want to do the same thing down here, okay? So what I can do is I can actually lock the Format Painter. And so I'll come here and I will select this now, and I'll go and I will double click. And so now that stays locked until I hit the escape key. So I can come down here and I can paint these, and then I can come over and I can paint these here, and I can just keep on going until I hit the escape key, and that will make my paintbrush stop. Oop, it's not making my paintbrush stop. I believe that will have done it. Yeah, so now it's stopped. And so that is how we use our format painter and lock that in so that we can do a lot of work at once. All right. Great, let's move over to the style number format. So here what I have done is I've used some rather advanced functions to go ahead and do summary calculations on everything that is over here in this list and come up with the totals for these folks, okay? This is a mess. This is even worse than that first gradebook that we made. This thing is just screaming for some formatting, okay? And so what we're gonna do here is, first off, none of these column headers are fitting well up here, right? They're not fitting well into this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make these uniform. So I'm going to select G through M. I've got those all selected. And now I'm just going to go to in between any of those letters, and that's going to become my double-headed little resizing tool. I'm going to click and drag just ever so slightly, and that is going to increase the width of all of them, okay? So that's pretty nice. They're all fitting now. Now, the sales rep name, not quite fitting, so I'm going to make G just a little bit bigger so that I can get that into there. Okay, good. That looks pretty nice. I'm going to go and apply my minimum amount of formatting here. I'm going to go and grab my color that I like so much across there. Not fitting quite again, so I'll widen that out just a little bit there. Great, okay. Now, I'm going to apply all borders to this. Come in here and go ahead and come up and go all borders. Boom, right there. And that is looking pretty darn good. Now, these are dollar amounts, and so I might want to add dollars, currency formatting to that. If so, I will select just the numbers here, and then I'll come up and I'll go ahead and I'll go to my accounting format and reduce my decimal places. Now, that is a little busy. I'm not too sure how much I love that. It is not a requirement by any means. It can be just assumed these are dollar amounts. I'm not too sure how much I really like that. And so I might go ahead and head back on over into number and go 0 decimal places there. And that's a lot cleaner, actually. You do not always need to have dollar signs on everything. Okay, so hey, that's just a minimum amount of formatting that we want to apply to any data set, and just look at how much easier on the eyes that is. Good. Let's head on over to functions, and let's dig into a couple of our basic functions that we might use. We looked at the sum function before, so let's do that. Let's go ahead and go sum, tab to start that, and we will just grab all of these numbers above and enter, and there we go. It's 5,055. Yeah. We might want to do average. We did that before too, right? Average right there. Tab to get that started. Come up, grab all of our numbers and enter. Boom, there we go. 229.77. We might want other kind of like statistical aggregate functions like the highest number, the maximum number in this list. Not a problem. Go ahead and grab this. Boom, right there. Max, the highest one is 391, okay, 391, okay. We might want to find the smallest number, the min, right? We'll come up there and we will select that one there and come on down, and there we go, that's 105. Okay. So now, we might also want to use count functions to figure out just how many of something there are, okay? And so we would come in here and we could just go count, okay, count. And then if we go and we grab this up here, what we're going to get is we're just going to get the number 2 right now. And that's because count only counts numbers. And so in this list up here, we had a 1 and a 1. Even though this says shift 2, shift 4, these are what we call text strings. We'll talk a lot more about that in this class. The actual numbers in here are just these 2 cells right here. And so those 2 cells right there were all we did. And so we get the number 2. If we wanted to count the cells that have anything in them, text or numbers, we would use the count a function. So we're going to add an a in here, count a, okay, count a right there with the same range, and enter. And then it's going to count everything except blanks. We have 22 rows of data here, right? 23 minus the header row, 22 rows of data. 2 of them, boom, boom, are blank. We get 20 right there. If we wanted to count the blanks, okay, if we want to count the blanks, then that would be the function called count blank right there, count blank, and that would give us the 2. It would count these 2 blank cells right here. Okay. All right, let's move on to our final sheet called select data. Right. Here we go. select data, and I'm going to make F and G here a little smaller so that it'll fit a little better on everybody's screen. And in fact, let me shorten a lot of this up just in case this is not fitting well on your laptop screen. And we'll make these dates small. Okay, maybe that will fit a little better onto everybody's screen so you can see what I'm doing a little better. Okay. So I want to do a sum function just like we've done so far. And so I'm going to go sum function right there. And I am going to sum the revenue, right? So I'm going to click here and I'm going to drag down and drag down. And maybe I'll go a little faster here. And wow, this is taking a long time, right? What is going on here? I better just go ahead and go back up. I'm going to scroll back up to the top here and figure out just what the heck is going on, okay? And so I'm going to go ahead and delete this and come over here and say, hey, just how many rows of data are there here, okay? Well, to do that, one thing I can do is I can just go ahead and click on E, and then I can look down over here in the bottom right-hand corner of my status bar, and I can see that there are 2,001 rows of data selected right now. And so that means there's 2,000 rows of data because we minus out the header row. So there's 2,000 rows here, okay? 2,000 rows. And that's a real problem for me trying to select with my mouse, okay? So what we need to do is we need to know keyboard shortcuts so that we can navigate realistically sized data sets, okay? 2,000 records is not a large data set. And even that becomes impossible with our mouse. You will routinely work with data sets with 2,000, 20,000, 200,000 records all the time. And so we need keyboard shortcuts if we're going to work in Excel at all. And so here we go. What we're going to do is we are going to use a combination of our control key, our shift key, and our arrow keys. And so what I'm going to do right now is I am just going to navigate to the bottom of the data set. So I'm going to go control and hold down control key and go down arrow. Up. That's not working with my control key. I'm going to go my command key and down arrow. There it is. Okay. And so that shot me all the way to the bottom of the data set. It went all the way to the bottom. It hit a blank cell and it stopped at row 2001. Okay. So now I'm going to use my command key. I'm going to hold down command and I'm going to go right arrow and I shoot over to the bottom right corner. And now command up arrow, that takes me all the way to the top. Command left arrow, and that takes me all the way over to cell A1. Fantastic. Now, that just moved me around. Now I want to select this entire stuff. So I'm going to hold down Shift and Command. I have Shift and Command held down, and now I'm going to go down arrow. And now I have selected the entire column A all the way down to row 2001. Now I'm going to go Shift Command and right arrow, and that selects everything to the right. So now I have my entire data set selected. So now let's say I say, you know what, row 2000 and 2001, those are bogus. I don't want those included. What I do is I just hold down Shift and go arrow up, and that will move. That'll reduce what I have selected there. Or if I want to add those back in, Shift arrow down. Okay, I'm going to go Shift arrow up again to deselect those. And now, hey, I don't want column E selected either. So I'll go Shift left arrow over, and that deselects that. Shift left arrow over, Shift right arrow to add back. Okay. All right. I'm going to go Escape to. I keep on using Escape, which actually reduces that. Sorry for the seasickness there. It's just I'm used to doing that on a PC. I'm going to head back up to the origin, back to cell A1. I'm going to go Command arrow up and Command left to get back over there. And we are going to use this same trick to go ahead and select all the data we want in our function. So I'm going to go equals SUM to get that started. Sum. I am going to go click at the 120 that I want to start at. And now I am going to go Shift Command arrow down to select that entire column. Okay. Now, we can't see the place that we were writing that formula in originally. We can see it up here in our formula bar. We can see it's sum E2 through E2001. Okay, and so now what we can do is we can just go ahead and hit enter, right? And that will go ahead and show us the result there and bring us back up here. We can do the same thing with our average, right? Let's come in here and let's go ahead and go average. And let's go here and let's average the quantity sold, okay? And so I'm going to come here and I'm going to click right there. I'm going to go Shift, Command, arrow down, and I will go Enter and come back up and take a look at that. And the average is 821. Okay. Let's find the maximum amount of revenue generated. Okay. So we'll come in there and we'll go max, boom, and the 120 again. Shift, Command, arrow down, and Enter. Okay. Come back up there and take a look at that. Boom. There. Okay. 360. And then the min. Okay. The min right there. Boom. Get the min. And once again, minimum revenue. We'll go Shift, Command, down. Now, if we did want to go back up to where our formula is at, okay, I was able to do it with like Command Delete before, but it's not consistent. And so one thing we could do is just go ahead and hit F4. That will put dollar signs on everything, but it does get us back up into here. And so if we were looking to like continue to write a formula, we could do that. We could head back up here like that. And so again, I'm going to go find the minimum revenue. Shift, Command, down, and then I'll go ahead and go Enter to get back up there, and there is that. Right. Let's go ahead and count the number of transactions here in the quantity row. And so we'll go count here, count, and I will grab the quantity, Shift, Command, down arrow, great, Enter, come back up, and we see that we have 2,000. Now, this is interesting. We're getting 2,000 there on our count, right? On our count, that shouldn't have currency formatting. And it looks like these were all just set for dollar amounts. And so let's go ahead and change count and count out here. And we'll take that from currency and we'll go to number. And that's going to make a lot more sense. We don't need decimal places either. And so we'll come in here and we'll do count up. And with count what we'll do is now we'll go and we will go count the product names here, okay? Product names. We couldn't do count there because count does numbers. But we can come over here to this and we can go Shift, Command, arrow down. And now we can go ahead and Enter, come back up to look at that. And there we go. It's a count of 2,000 as well. So now, that is using our keyboard shortcuts to select data inside of this proper data set like that, right? There is a faster way, and let me show you this now with a little bit of explanation, okay? We can go ahead and sum the revenue in a much faster way. Rather than selecting E2, 120, and going all the way down to row 2001, what we can do is we can just select the column header. If I select the column header right now, okay, if I select the column header right now, you see it comes through as EE. What we've done is we've selected every single cell in column E all the way to the bottom of the worksheet. And so let me go ahead and escape out of this for a second to show you where the bottom of the worksheet is. I'm going to go Command arrow down and then Command arrow down. And you can see it's actually 1.04 million rows down. It is a long ways down there, okay? And so what we're doing when we select E right here is we're selecting all the way down there, all the way to the bottom of the worksheet. We're selecting 1.04 million cells. That is just fine actually here because the sum function is just going to add stuff up and it's going to ignore all the empty cells anyway. And so we can just select that right there and we will get the same number as up there. 266,798, the same as we did up there, and it's a lot faster. We just need to be aware of the fact that the header is selected for one thing, revenue. That's not a number, so it doesn't matter. And all of the cells underneath this data set are empty cells, and that doesn't matter either. We just need to be aware of that. And if we're aware of that, then we can actually get away with using the column headers to select these things, and that is a whole lot faster and gives us the exact same answers. We just need to be aware of the fact that we are selecting anything above and anything below, but generally that doesn't matter too much, so we can use this, this trick to save a lot of time. Hey, I hope that class was good for you and you learned some stuff in there and you're excited for the rest of the class. I'm going to wrap this up now so I can keep it as short as possible, and I will see you in the next demonstration.